truck's hydraulic whine had been the soundtrack to his mornings for 25 years, but in his dreams, it was always replaced by the soaring strings of La Scala's orchestra. Vinny Torrino, 64, sat in the fifth row of the Tonight Show studio, his work-calloused hands unconsciously conducting an invisible symphony, while his deep-set eyes held the distant look of someone who had spent decades listening to music that existed only in his mind. The small NYC sanitation department, 25 years, pin on his clean flannel shirt caught the studio lights as he shifted uncomfortably in his seat. To the millions of New Yorkers whose garbage he'd collected over 2.5 decades, Vinny was just another early morning fixture, the friendly guy in the orange vest who somehow always managed to work quietly enough not to wake the sleeping city. And what they didn't know was that they were being serenaded by a man with a voice trained for opera's greatest stages. What Vinny didn't know was that his story had been captured by a viral video that had been shared millions of times, a cell phone recording of him singing Nessun Dorma while loading garbage trucks at 5 a.m., his powerful tenor voice echoing off the buildings of Little Italy with such perfection that pedestrians had stopped in their tracks, some moved to tears by the unexpected beauty in their morning routine. Vinny's story had begun with dreams as big as the Metropolitan Opera House itself. Born in Brooklyn to Italian immigrant parents who ran a small bakery, he'd shown musical talent from childhood. His voice so pure and powerful that his elementary school music teacher had insisted his parents get him proper training. By high school, Vinny was the star of every school production, and by college, he'd earned a partial scholarship to study vocal performance at the Manhattan School of Music. The training had been rigorous and expensive. Vinny had studied Italian, German, and French to master the language requirements of classical opera. He'd learned breath control, stage presence, and the dramatic interpretation that could make audiences weep during a perfectly executed aria. His professors had been impressed by his natural gift, a dramatic tenor voice with the power to fill concert halls, and the sensitivity to break hearts with intimate pieces. But the opera world had proven brutally competitive. For every role at the Metropolitan Opera, hundreds of equally trained singers auditioned. Vinny had spent years taking any singing work he could find, weddings, corporate events, small regional opera companies, while waiting tables and delivering pizzas to pay for voice lessons and auditions. By his late 20s, with mounting debt and no steady income from music, he'd taken a temporary job with the sanitation department to make ends meet. 25 years later, that temporary job had become his career. The steady paycheck, health benefits, and pension had allowed him to buy a small house in Queens, support his aging parents, and eventually marry Elena, a nurse who appreciated his music even if the world never would. But through it all, Vinny had never stopped singing. In the shower, in his truck, sometimes at 5 a.m. when the city was quiet and his voice could echo off empty buildings like nature's own concert hall. The Tonight Show tickets had been a surprise retirement gift from his sanitation crew. Vinny was stepping down next month after 25 years, and his colleagues had pitched in for one last celebration of the man who had made early morning garbage runs feel less like work through the power of his incredible voice. It was a Tuesday night taping in March, and Jimmy was in good spirits after interviewing a Broadway star about her upcoming musical. During his commercial break interaction with the audience, his attention was drawn to Vinny by his obvious discomfort with the fancy environment and the way he kept checking his watch as if his shift started soon. "Sir, you look like someone who gets up early for work. What do you do?" Vinny straightened with the automatic politeness of someone accustomed to dealing with the public. "Garbage collector, sir. NYC sanitation. Been doing it 25 years, retiring next month." A warm murmur went through the nearby audience members. Sanitation workers were essential, but often overlooked, and 25 years of service deserved recognition. 25 years keeping New York clean, that's incredible service. Do you enjoy the work? Vinny's face lit up with genuine pride. "Oh, yes, it's honest work. You start early, usually done by noon. Get to see the city wake up every morning, help keep neighborhoods clean and safe, good benefits, good people to work with. Can't complain." Starting early means you're probably out there at dawn. That must be peaceful, seeing the city before everyone else is awake. It is peaceful. Sometimes I sing while I work, helps pass the time, and at 5 a.m., nobody's around to bother. The casual mention of singing caught Jimmy's attention. Something about the way Vinny said it suggested more than just humming along to the radio. You sing while you work? What kind of music do you like? Vinny looked uncertain, as if he'd revealed more than he intended. Oh, I studied music a little when I was younger. Old songs, classical stuff mostly. Classical music, that's interesting. Do you have any formal training? Vinny paused, clearly debating how much of his past to share. I went to music school for a while, long time ago. Studied voice, opera actually, but that was before real life happened. The studio grew quieter. The casual mention of opera training was unexpected from a garbage collector, and something in Vinny's tone suggested a story of deferred dreams. Jimmy made a decision that would change everything. Vinny, opera is serious training. Would you mind coming down here and telling us about that part of your life? Vinny looked genuinely nervous. Oh, I don't think people want to hear about old dreams. That was a long time ago. Trust me, I think they do. Come on down. As Vinny made his way to the stage with the careful steps of someone unaccustomed to being the center of attention, his posture began to change subtly, a hint of the stage presence he'd once cultivated. When he reached the stage, Jimmy guided him to a comfortable chair. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy announced, this is Vinny Torrino. For 25 years, he's been keeping New York's streets clean, but apparently there's more to his story. Vinny, tell us about your music training. Vinny settled into the chair, and when he spoke about music, his voice took on a different quality, more confident, more cultured. I studied at the Manhattan School of Music in the 1900 SS vocal performance, specializing in opera. I wanted to be a tenor, maybe perform at the Met someday. Studied all the great roles, Puccini, Verdi, Mozart. The audience was completely quiet, processing this unexpected revelation. Opera singers were among the most elite classical musicians, requiring years of intensive training. The Manhattan School of Music, that's one of the best conservatories in the country. You must have been very talented to get in. I had a voice teacher who believed in me, helped me audition. It was the greatest 4 years of my life, learning from masters, studying the great operas, performing with other serious musicians. What happened? Why didn't you pursue opera professionally? Vinny's expression grew more reflective. Reality happened. Opera is beautiful, but it's also brutal. Hundreds of singers audition for every role. Even talented people spend years waiting tables between auditions. I had student loans, my parents needed help with medical bills, and I met Elena, my wife. I needed steady income, not the uncertainty of artistic life. So you took the sanitation job temporarily. That's what I told myself. Temporary, just until I could figure out how to make music pay the bills. 25 years later, Vinny smiled sadly. Sometimes temporary becomes permanent when you're not looking. Jimmy leaned forward. But you never stopped singing. Never. Can't stop, really. Music doesn't leave you just because you change careers. I sing at home, sometimes at work when no one's around. Elena says I sing in my sleep. Jimmy reached behind his chair and pulled out a tablet. Vinny, we found something before tonight's show. He turned the tablet to show a video. Vinny in his orange sanitation vest, standing beside his garbage truck at dawn, singing Nessun Dorma with such power and beauty that the camera phone was shaking in the hands of whoever was recording. This video has been viewed over 3 million times. People in the comments are calling you the Pavarotti of sanitation and New York's hidden treasure. Vinny looked stunned. Someone filmed me? I didn't know anyone was watching. Vinny, that's not just good singing. That's professional level opera performance. Would you consider singing something for us here? Vinny looked genuinely terrified. I haven't performed on stage in 30 years. I'm not sure I remember how. Trust me, Jimmy said gently. Voice like that doesn't forget. The studio fell completely silent as Vinny stood up, his posture transforming completely. Suddenly, the garbage collector disappeared and was replaced by the opera singer he'd always been inside. He took a deep breath, placed his hand over his heart in the classical manner, and began to sing. Nessun dorma, tu pure, o principe, nella tua fredda stanza. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. Vinny's voice filled the studio with such power and beauty that audience members gasped audibly. This wasn't amateur singing, this was world-class opera performance, the kind of voice that belonged in the greatest opera houses of the world. The famous aria built to its climactic finish, All'alba vincero, vincero, vincero. It done. I will win. I will win. When the last note faded, the silence lasted for nearly 30 seconds before the audience erupted in the kind of sustained emotional applause usually reserved for the Metropolitan Opera. People were openly weeping, camera operators had stopped working to listen, and even the production crew stood transfixed by what they'd witnessed. Jimmy had tears streaming down his face. Vinny, that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. How do you carry that voice, that talent, and spend 25 years collecting garbage? Because garbage collection is honest work that fed my family, Vinny said simply. Music is what I love, but love doesn't always pay the bills. I'm proud of both parts of my life. Jimmy stood and addressed the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just witnessed something extraordinary. This man has spent 25 years serving his city with dignity while carrying one of the most beautiful voices in New York. He turned back to Vinny. The opera community has heard about you. Lincoln Center wants to offer you a chance to perform in their Hidden Voices concert series, showcasing extraordinary talent found in unexpected places. Vinny's eyes filled with tears. Lincoln Center? They want me to perform? They do, and Vinny, there's something else. The Metropolitan Opera Guild wants to establish a scholarship in your honor for working-class students who dream of opera careers but need financial support to pursue their training. Vinny was openly crying now. A scholarship in my name? Because, Vinny, what you've shown is that greatness doesn't always happen on grand stages. Sometimes the most beautiful music happens at 5 a.m. on empty streets, sung by someone who chose responsibility over recognition, but never gave up the thing that made him who he is. As they helped Vinny back to his seat, he stopped and looked out at the audience one more time. Thank you, but I want everyone to know, follow your dreams, but don't be ashamed of the work that supports them. Every job has dignity if you bring your heart to it. And music never leaves you, no matter where life takes you. The episode that aired became one of the most watched Tonight Show segments in history, with Vinny's performance being shared millions of times across social media platforms. The Lincoln Center concert was a triumph, with Vinny performing alongside professional opera singers to a sold-out audience that gave him multiple standing ovations. The Vinny Torrino Scholarship became a reality, supporting dozens of working-class students pursuing opera careers. Vinny retired from sanitation as planned, but discovered that his musical career was just beginning. He spent his retirement performing at concerts, teaching voice lessons to young singers, and proving that dreams deferred are not necessarily dreams denied. At 66, Vinny still gets up early out of habit, still believes in the dignity of honest work, and still carries his sanitation department pin alongside his new opera performance credentials, a reminder that true artists find ways to sing no matter what stage life provides. Because sometimes the most beautiful music happens not in grand opera houses, but on ordinary streets, sung by extraordinary people who understand that art and work, dreams and reality can coexist in the same heart, the same voice, the same life, lived with dignity and purpose.